Lord, find us faithful in the work we do for you. Lord, make us helpful to those who are misused. You sent us to be the light to your wonderful creation. We are to spread the gospel to every family and nation. Don't let me fail in my task, Lord, I wanna be faithful. Let me serve you, Lord, and I will be helpful. When you serve others, you ought to be hopeful. You ought to be grateful. You ought to be joyful. You ought to be truthful. When you serve others, you ought to be servants. You ought to be oh, believe me, you ought to be graceful. You ought to be merciful. Servants, you ought to be faithful.